Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about using OData with EDM pattern. In the past we talked about using OData directly with an ASP.NET Web API application without having to use ADM. The problem with that is that you lose some of the functionality and the good stuff that comes in with OData like pagination and count and stuff like that because we are limiting our response to maintain an exact contract between your existing API and whatever your clients are subscribed to. But if you have that wiggle room of convincing your clients, or you're starting a new application from scratch, and you have that wiggle room of telling your clients, I want to give you more functionality with a little teeny tiny bit of a change to your contract, whatever you're responding with, then EDM is the way to go when it comes to OData. And I'm going to show you today how to use the EDM pattern or technology with OData in your ASP.NET application. Let's go ahead and jump to the IDE here. I'm going to go ahead and start a new project. We want an ASP.NET Core web application. And let's call it OData with EDM. Web API. That's a long name. Let's go OData with EDM. All right, and then here's a web application. I want to build an API, so let's just go with the API part. This is ASP.NET Core 2.2, and I'm going to tell you now there's a little bit of difference between ASP.NET Core 2.0, 2.1 and 2.2 when it comes to integrating the EDM model. Let's go ahead and create a new project here real quick. Here's my new project. And then obviously you have a controller, just pretty straightforward values control. So I'm just going to go ahead in here and just run the project just to verify that our stuff is working as expected. There you go. So it's returning the values out of that controller. All right, let's go ahead and build something that makes more sense just from an organizational standpoint. Let's create a new folder here. Let's call it models. And I'm going to create quickly a student model. And our student model has a bunch of stuff. Let's say GUID, ID, string, name, integer, age, and so on and so forth. Let's make it score. We don't really care about the age here. Let's make it score. All right, so that's just a student. And then I'm going to create a service in here. Let's build a service layer. And let's call it the student service. So this is going to be my data provider at this point, since I don't really have to have an actual database. And I'm doing this intentionally just to show you that we don't really have any hard dependencies on SQL or anything. I could just load something in memory, and wherever it's coming from, as long as it's a list and it's something I can work with, it should just work like a charm. So let's go in here and say this is the students service. And then let's have the student service provide a list of students. So this is get students. So I love how Visual Studio already knows, suggests a name based on, what you have. You have a list of students. It's just gonna find the plural for that word and just create the method for you. So let's create sorry, this is not a method. I built a property by mistake. Let's remove that and start over. I want a method, so it's public list student. This is a list of students, and then get students. Here's my method, and then it will return just a new list of students. I'm going really fast with this because it's not a part of. I just want you to see everything built from scratch. So this is a list of students, and then I'm going to create a new student. Let's give them just a random ID, name. Let's call it David Lara, and then let's give it a score 100, and then let's add in another student in here. I just add in my best friends in there just to honor them in a way. So here's an ID, GUID, new GUID, name, say Todd Meyer, and then let's have a score of 120, and just one more student, just for fun. GUID, new GUID, name, Trevor, and then a score of 110. Just a quick, so this is just a list that represents whatever data source you have, whatever that data source you have. This is an abstract layer that gives you data from wherever it's coming from. It could be Cosmos, it could be whatever you want. It could be a file on your computer. It doesn't really matter. Now, let's get to the fun stuff. We want to add OData to our system. So the exact same way we did before, let's find in OData. Our data for ASP.NET Core, here it is. Let's give it a second to add in the stuff that it needs. There you go. All right, all good. Now, we want to add OData as a service. So in the services, I'm going to go ahead and say add OData, like that. Right, and then there's this part about endpoint routing. We want to make sure that, for ASP.NET Core 2.2, this is a little bit of a bug. This is a workaround. It's not something that, and I'm going to talk to the OData team at Microsoft about this problem. But what we're doing here is basically that I am saying, the override of endpoint routing. We want to disable that feature, because without that, if you try to override existing /API endpoint, it won't work. It blows up, and it works in 2.1, but unfortunately it doesn't work in 2.0. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add an action. Say action.enable routing, call that false. So that way we still get to keep our endpoints as /API instead of /OData. You want to use /OData if you want to, if you have existing API and you want to onboard your clients to the new endpoint. That's totally a legit case. In our case here, I'm assuming I'm starting a project from scratch. I'm still want to honor that /API mindset. All right. So we added OData and we added a little bit of routing here. This is a hack. Remember, you don't have to do that, and this is an issue that should be addressed one way or another. Now let's go build the EDM part. The EDM part is the part that I wanted to talk to you about today. What I'm doing here is I'm building basically a liaison between our model and our and OData, the routing. So this is EDM model. And then let's go pull that out from OData EDM. As you can see, it's right here. Right, and then this method, really, you can call it whatever you want. I personally suggest just say get EDM model. There you go. And then we're gonna do the builder here. So var builder. So this is the linking. This is the mapping, right? So you want new OData convention. OData builder, let's see. So I remember that OData convention model builder. OData convention model builder. I think that's the right. There you go. So this is a model builder, right? And now we want to hook that up to the students. We want to do the mapping between OData, the engine of OData, and your model. So what we're gonna do is that builder dot, and then we have an entity type of student. I think it's entity set. It's a bunch of students. There's students. Filling in our model in here, and then you are just identifying the model, you're identifying what set are you working with. So it's turning, you see what it's doing here, it's turning, you're giving it a model, and OData, what it's doing, this is basically a mapped table or list of students that OData engine can deal with. Students could be coming from anywhere, you know, entity framework, SQL, whatever you want to do. The last thing we want to do here is just return that builder. So we builder dot, is it the model? Get the EDM model right here. So this is the one thing, the one extra thing. So this is 2 lines of code and 3 lines of code or 4 lines of code, you know, just extra step, and I'll show you why it's totally worth it for you to do that, right? Now, the rest is pretty much straightforward. Like, it's exactly route builder. That's exactly what we did last time when we just introduced data, OData. So here's your route builder, and then you're adding in all the functionalities that you want. So I want filter, I want select, I want count, I want what are the other things that we have? Count, select, you could have order by, you have expand, right? You have max stop. A lot of people ask me about max stop. There, let's have max stop. What's your maximum? Let's say 10, you know, and then so that's that. Now we just want to build, the last thing we want to do is just build the routing part. And this is why we had to do that little hack up here. You know, this is the whole reason why we had to do that. So in here, we're just going to do route builder and then map OData service. Map OData service route, and then you want to call your route name API, and then the EDM model, which is the method that we built. That's all that it is. Let's go through that again. We added OData as a service, added NuGet package, added OData as a service. We did a little bit of hack here for endpoint routing, and then we created a get EDM model method. We enabled all the functionalities we want to have through our endpoint, and then we have the map OData service route, just to say this is /API. So that name doesn't matter. What matters is the next one, which is the route prefix. The route prefix is what you really want to care about. The name would actually matter if you're using deeper configuration and you want to switch between things and you want to pull that from a configuration and decide what route you want to go with. We don't really care about that for now. All right, so that's the case. Now, what to do next? Now we want the controller part. We want to work with the controller part. So let's go back to build a student's controller. And then let's call it students controller. This is the students controller. All right. And then just like the other thing, so this is it in here, it's going to return, let's see, this is, okay, this will return students, the /students, and then we still want to enable the query part. So you want to go in here and say enable query, just the same way we did with the normal. And then this is not the controller I want. This is an actual view controller. I just want an API controller. So how about that? Let's go in here. Let's say API controller empty, and let's just copy. Let's say this is students controller, and let's just copy that from the values controller, so we don't have to build much stuff. Let's just get the get one. There's the get one. Let's go to students controller. Let's throw that in there. So that's HTTP get. With this controller, now there's a couple of things here. If you want to do this with the EDM, you don't really need that part completely, right? So that part goes out of the list. And then what we want to do here is that we want to return those students. So we have the student service that gives us all the data that we want. And then out of that student service, we're gonna return the get students, right? We still need to enable the query part. So we wanna go in here and say enable query. There you go. This requires OData, and this one is erroring out because we are returning an IEnumerable of string when it should be IEnumerable of students. So here's our model, just pulling in everything. Control period will solve all your problems. All right, so enable query. We have our controllers. We have everything. Now here comes the interesting part. Testing our API. So let's run the API here and let's see if things are working accordingly. First of all, we want to make sure things are working just as normal. So let's go in here. So that's what we're hitting here is /students. So here's our students. Let's do that with Postman because using the browser is a little bit weird. I know it looks kind of organized, but still. Let's run this. All right, here's the students. So that means OData is working. The reason that the new thing that you will notice there, and this is why what I said to you about, having to understand that there will be a contract change. It's not just returning a list of your students, it's actually returning a bunch of stuff, and these stuff, there's like you can get the metadata for your students so you can understand the model. It shows you like what happened, what's the EDM is doing, and what your students model look like. I want to show you that because that's very cool actually. Let's close all that stuff. Have a lot of stuff open. Let's just paste in here and let's hit that guy. Right, and look at that. If you hit the metadata part, it'll show you the type, the properties, everything you want to know and learn about the model that you're interacting with. So this is amazing. It's like a Swagger without really having a Swagger. It's just a way. So you're like, if you want to automate. So this is the cool part about this. If you want to automate the mapping on your client, you know how on your client you have to build the model and then map the JSON response to your application. This basically gives you the ability to automate that. You can actually automate how the models are coming back, what they're supposed to look like, and then you start building on top of that. And it'll even tell you all the information you need, like whether it's nullable or not, all the kind of information you need if you have a parser that can extract that information. So that's amazing. You can actually build a client that dynamically adjusts itself based on the model change. Of course, on your service side, this is a little bit of a dangerous thing because on your service side, you need to have a mapper in the middle between your brokers and services. In case the model changes into something that couldn't break your existing functionality, you want to make sure that mapper abstracts away that problem and gauges your application from any of these issues. But obviously for newer versions and whatnot and proper API development, you should be able to do that. So you don't have to ask people for a Swagger of what the response would look like. You could just hit /metadata/students and it'll tell you what it is. Anyway, enough talking about that. I'm obviously too fascinated with that. Let's just hit the students endpoint. Let's see what we're gonna do here. So now that we have this existing data, now I can get stuff like count out of this. So if I do $count equal true, it'll give me back the total count of the students that I have. And the other functionality already exists. Everything is working fine. But there is one extra feature here that is actually more interesting than anything else. Because a lot of people have complained about, count is not working for me. Let's just make sure the other functionalities work as expected. So if I say and select, and I want only the name, let's put a $sign in here. It'll give me the name. It'll do all that kind of stuff for me. And let's do and filter equal score greater than 100. It'll filter to people who have score. Obviously, you can't see that because it's showing both just the name. But if I do name and score, it shows you the people that have score. How about greater than or equal? That should include everybody, I think. There you go. So all of that works, right? The additional feature, this is enabling OData at large. You have all the functionality now available without having to have any hard dependency on any particular storage technology. But the part that I want to show you here is in the query in here. This is something very interesting, and you might find a big advantage. You have a page size. So what's that page size basically? It's gauging and limiting your data to a certain amount of students per call, which is very, very important and unique and saves you a lot of time when you're doing pagination with your application. So if I run my application here, let's run application again. Let's go to Postman. And then let's go to students, all the way back to students. You'll notice something very interesting in here. You have OData next link that shows you how to paginate. You go to the next, so it's showing you only one at a time, one student at a time, but you get to actually skip to the next. So you can programmatically pick up this guy and just call it. If I do control right click, yeah, but it's not opening it in Postman. So let me copy this guy for you here and paste that guy in here. So look what happened here. In the first part, it showed me Todd, but in the next call, it showed me Trevor as it's traversing through the list. Which means if I make that third call, without the double quotes, it shows me David. So I have David, Trevor, and Todd. So just like that, you built a full functionality to gives you very powerful functionality like expand, count, select, whatever you want. But in addition to that, you actually built something that's even more important, which is pagination. You're controlling pagination through your API. And I want to show you in the next video how you can take advantage of that with Blazor. How can you take advantage of this pagination to quickly build a list of data that you can paginate through so fast? There are other functionality here that I want you to look at. You can control a lot of stuff in OData just by a couple of lines of code. So that's it for now. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in another video. Thank you for watching.